Hi everyone. Let me ask you something real quick. Have you ever looked at a pile of data and wondered, what are my customers really doing? Who is buying what? Where are they coming from? Which products are popular and why are some customers never coming back? If you've asked those questions, you are in the right place because today we are going to build something that will help you answer them at a glance. In this video, we are going to create a dynamic Excel dashboard that analyzes customer behavior using real-world data. You will learn how to bring together multiple tables using data modeling, explore patterns using pivot tables, visualize trends with interactive charts, and finally, tie it all together into a dashboard with powerful slicers that let you filter data instantly. We'll start by importing our data. To do so, we'll click on the Data tab on our ribbon, then go to Get Data. We want to get data from a file. Our data is saved in comma delimited, that is CSV. So click on that. So we have our files in a data visualization folder. In this class, we'll be using 3 tables. So we'll be importing them one after the other. So let's start with importing the orders table. We'll click on the orders table, then click on import. Then we click on transform so that it takes us to Power Query. Now in Power Query, we want to look at our data and see if we have any transformation to do. We have a full course on cleaning data in Power Query. The link is in the description of this video. So let's go ahead. If you look at the orders ID, we don't want it to be a numerical value. We want it to be a text value because we want to use it as row labels when we begin our pivot analysis. And again, since we are not doing any arithmetic operations on them, so there is no need for it to be a numerical value. All right, so let us change this data type now to text. We highlight this order ID column. We go to transform, and in the data type now, currently is at whole number. We click the drop down and change it to text, okay? Now it's asking us if we want to change column type because initially when we imported this, Power Query changed the column type and had it recorded in our applied step. So yes, we can say replace current, okay? Okay, now we have this correct. You can see our order ID is in text, our customer ID is in text, our cost ID is in text, right? So something else we can do is to also extract individual components within this dates column, okay? So to do so, we will go to add column, then we'll click on dates. But remember, we had to highlight the column of interest first, which is our order dates column, right? So we continue now. We click on date. We want to pick out the day, right? And we'll say day. So with this, the day in the date has been extracted, right, correctly. So let's highlight the order date again and continue that process. So we'll go to date and let's pick the month, right? Say the month, you click on month. We have the month extracted. Let's do the same for the year, right? Highlight it and we'll say year, pick the year. So now you see that we have day, month, and year, separate representation of what we had together here in our order dates. You can do this and many more in Power Query. The link to the video on data cleaning and calculations using Power Query is in the description of this video. So make sure you look at it because data cleaning is a must. Think of it like this. If you were building a house, you wouldn't start with cracked bricks, right? In the same way, before we build charts or dashboards or perform any analysis, we need to make sure our data is accurate, organized, and structured. That means removing messy formatting, checking for missing or duplicate records, and making sure columns are correctly typed, okay? Now that we have worked on this, we can load this now to our data model, okay? So you can load that from the Home tab as well as the File tab, whichever you want to use. But what you need to do is to click this Close and Load to, okay? Click Close and Load to, because we want to see this table in our data model where we create relationship between this table and other tables, right? So let's check, add these to the data model, all right, and click OK. So we are going to have a table imported here in our spreadsheet. Also, the table will be in our data model, okay? So let's go ahead and import other tables, all right? We'll go to our data tab. I will say get data from file, from text or CSV. We will be importing our courses table now. We click on import. So now we take a look at our courses table preview. Then let's take it into Power Query by clicking on transform data. So in Power Query, we examine our column labels and our data set if they are in the right data type, which everything here is fine. So we can close and load to. Make sure you select add to this data model. Okay, click OK. So we have it imported here in our Excel spreadsheet and also in our data model. So the last table, we head on to data, get data from file, from text or CSV, and let's pick our community table. Okay, we click on import. Let's go to Power Query by clicking transform data. Examining our data, we can see that everything is fine. Custom ID is in text, full name in text, gender in text, region in text, and age in whole numbers. So that is fine. So let us close and load to so that we can select add this to data model while it also imports in the new worksheet. We click on OK. We have our 3 tables imported successfully. So think of these 3 tables like different puzzle pieces, right? Where we have our orders, community, and courses. Right now, they are just sitting separately. But when we link them together, we will unlock the full picture. And that is what data model does for us. Let's go into our data model and connect our tables, okay? To do that, we head on to data tab. Under data tools, you see your data model, right? If it's the first time you are using this, when you click on data model, if it's the first time you're using this, when you click on data model, you will have to activate the data model, which is a simple process by just clicking that, okay? So let's click on data model now. We'll see manage data models, right? So this will take us to Power Pivot for Excel, where we will manage data models. So while you are here, you have different views. Where we are right now is the data view, where you can see your tables that you've imported into your models, okay? Now we have the orders table, the courses, and the community. The community refers here to our customer table. So this is because we are in the data view. If you take it to the diagram view, you are going to see your tables in the diagram view with the individual headers in that table or in those tables. So this is where we can actually create our relationship by linking our 3 tables together. So let's drag customer ID from our orders table. So right, these are orders table. So we are going to drag customer ID. So click hold and drag, and we want to drag customer ID from our orders table to customer ID in the community table, right? So we have customer ID in the community table. So when this relationship is done, you can basically adjust your table as you would like, okay? So if we hover over this link, you are going to see what is linked. And this helps us to know if we have done the appropriate linking. So we have linked customer ID from the orders table to customer IDs in the community table. Okay, so let's link the third table. So we are going to be linking course ID from the orders table to course ID in courses, right? So let's pick course ID from the orders table to course ID on the courses table. Okay, so we have linked this as well. If you hover over this link, you see that we have linked appropriately course ID from the orders table to course ID on the courses table. So we just created 2 relationships. Now, Excel understands every order is linked to one customer, and that is the link from our orders table to our community table. Secondly, every order is linked to one course, and that is the link from our orders table to our courses table. So the orders table here serves as a fact table because it holds all the transactions. The courses and the community table are dimension tables. They provide more context about each order. right? We have connected orders, courses, and our community table. Now comes the fun part, which is analysis. The tool we are going to be using is the Mighty Pivot Table, one of Excel's most powerful features. All right, so let's demonstrate that. You can insert a pivot table directly from your Power Pivot here, where you see pivot table. All right, so let's insert our first pivot table directly from here. You click on pivot table here. So we want to create a pivot table in a new worksheet. Okay, so we click on OK. Now we have inserted our pivot table, right? And you can see our three tables that we linked in the data model. Okay, these are three tables that we linked in the data model. Let's start by populating our first pivot table. So we want to take customer ID from the community table, right? We'll pick customer ID. We want to take it to rows. The rows now will give us labels of each of the customer ID, okay? Secondly, we want to take order ID from the order table, right? Let us pick order ID from the order table to values, okay? So when we do this now, what it shows us is the frequency of order, okay? We can rename this sheet order frequency. We can also rename this count of orders to what? Order frequency. We can easily do that by double-clicking on the count here, and the custom name here, we can just call it order frequency. We click on OK. So we have that there. We can also rename this to customer ID. So instead of having it as row label, we have it as customer ID. So let us adjust this sheet so that we have our pivot tables going forward. This is our first pivot table. Let us enter the second pivot table. The second pivot table, we will be analyzing top performing courses. And to do that, we can create a new sheet. When we create a new sheet, we can rename this sheet top performing. We click where we want to insert our pivot table. We go to insert, we'll say insert pivot table, right? We'll click on pivot table. I want to insert pivot table from our data model, right? So we'll click on from data model. We want it to be in this existing sheet, okay? So we want to control how our sheets will be entered, and that is what we have done. So we'll click OK. When we click OK, we can see our three tables, right? So to analyze the top performing courses, what we need to do is that we need to take course name from our courses table. So take course name into rows, okay? Now we'll have labels of our courses, right? Then we will take order ID from our order table, right? Let's pick order ID from our order table into values. Okay, this is going to give us the counts of orders, okay, based on the different courses. So let us rename these as orders, or you call it number of orders. Okay, we'll click OK. And we want to call these courses. All right. So now that we've done this, we need to sort these in descending order so that you can easily see the top performing courses. Right now, it's sorted A to Z, right? Alphabetically. So let's do that. Okay, we'll click on the filter button here. We'll click on more sort option. We'll click on descending orders because we want to sort them in descending order. But we want to sort using this order column, not the courses column or the course name column. So we'll click the drop down and we'll pick and we'll have this sorted in descending order. Now you can see the top performing courses. To the third analysis, where we'll be analyzing course popularity by region. Let's create a new worksheet and rename this worksheet course popularity. Rename it course popularity. Now we will go to insert, then click the drop down on the pivot table, click from data model because we want to insert from data model. We are in an existing worksheet, so we allow this, then click OK. So let's go ahead and perform our course popularity by region analysis. So we are going to pick region from the community table, and we'll pick region to the row so that we have the regions here. Then we want to take course name from our course table, take course name to columns, okay? So we have column labels and row labels, okay? Then we pick order ID from our order table, okay? And put it in our values section here. to count. So from what we have seen so far, you realize that the rows and the columns are labels, right? So whatever you put in the columns on the rows gives you labels. So the corresponding calculation comes when you pick a column into the values section here. If you pick numerical values, it's by default calculates the sum, right? That is the summation of the values. If you pick a text values, it's by default counts. And that is why, remember, I made mention that we had to change the data types of our order ID into text so that we count appropriately. If we had left it at decimal, when we put it in values here, it will have given us a summation, right? Instead of counts, okay? So now, what we have done is to compare two variables, basically. We compared the region, right, and the courses. So the fourth analysis will be repeat versus one-time customer, okay? To do this, we have to create a new field using calculated columns in Power Pivot. Let's add a calculated column in Power Pivot to perform our analysis, okay? So what we need to do now is to head on to Power Pivot, okay? So I have Power Pivot in my ribbon here, click on Power Pivot. But if you do not have Power Pivot, let's walk you on how you can enable Power Pivot, okay? So to enable Power Pivot, you go to File, right? Navigate to File. Then you click on More to access options, right? Click on Options, okay? Then go to Add-ins, click on Add-ins, and in the add-ins, you click this drop down to select Come Add-ins, okay? Then click on Go. Now, you can see where you would check your Microsoft Power Pivot for Excel. So mine is checked, and that is why you have it there. Once you check it, you just go ahead and click OK, and you have it immediately appearing on your ribbon. So now that you've enabled your Power Pivot, you can go along with us. Click Power Pivot on your ribbon. Let's click Manage here on the data model. We want to manage our data model, and it takes us back into Power Pivot for Excel, where we had our data model and created our relationships earlier. Now, to basically go back to our data view, we click our data view so that you see we want to work on orders table, okay? So we have it here in our orders table. You can easily just go ahead, click here, and begin to enter our formulas in our formula bar, or you can go to design, right? When you click on add, this adds a column here for you to perform your calculations. So let's go to the formula bar here to enter our calculations, okay? So let's enter the following formulas. Once we are done entering the formulas, I will be explaining what those formulas. So we'll say equals, calculate, open parentheses. Let's enter the expression. Our expression will be to count rows. We'll open our parentheses, and we want to count rows from our orders table. Then close parentheses and say comma. Then we'll say all except, open parentheses. We are going to be entering our table name orders, comma, and we want to refer to the customer ID in the orders table, okay? So say orders, open square bracket, and we'll say customer ID. Close our square bracket, and we close two parentheses. And we are closing two parentheses because we had this open, right? This open as well. So we have to close for this and for this, okay? Now, our formulas have been entered correctly, but let me explain what this does. We started with the calculate function. The calculate function allows you to control the data used in calculation because it evaluates an expression. And when we're entering this and we say this, you can see that it says calculate expression. So it allows us to have an expression here where we use in a modified filter condition. So you see now that we use count rows. So count rows count the number of rows in a specified table. So we basically have entered another function here to count the rows in our orders table, right? So the all except here does this. It removes all context filters from table except for the one specified in the column passed as argument. We want to remove all context filters from our orders table, right? That's what it means, except the one specified in this argument. So what basically this formula does is to help us count the rows in our orders table, but specifically counting the customer ID. Okay, so let's go ahead, hit enter, and you see that it has been calculated appropriately. Now that we have calculated this, we need to rename our column. Instead of having it as calculated column 1, let's have it as our order count. Okay, so you right click here and say rename column, and we'll say order count. Hit enter and you have your column renamed appropriately. So we are going to be adding another column, and that column will basically be a categorization of our order counts. So remember, we are trying to perform an analysis that shows us repeat customers and one-time customers. Okay, so let's go ahead and add another column. We'll click on add under design, right? Click on add to add this column. We'll enter the following formulas. And now we are going to be using a logic. We'll say equals if, right? Open parentheses. Now, we want to use this as a logical test. That is the order count we just entered as the logical test. So we'll say order count. So we'll say if order count, we close our square brackets. So we'll say greater than 1, right? So this is our logical test. If order count is greater than 1, what will be the result if this condition or this logical test is true? If it's true that orders are greater than 1, let it be repeat, right? And we'll enter that repeat in quotes because repeat is a text and we want it to appear in our data table as repeat. So we'll say comma. Comma then will take us to if the result is false. That is, if order count is not greater than 1, what happens? We call this one time, and we'll put one time in quotes because one time is also a string and we want it to appear in our orders table. So we are going to close our parentheses and this is fine. So we go ahead and hit enter on our keyboard so that we have our categorization. Okay. Now we can rename these to call it order classification. We right click and we'll say rename. We'll say order classification. We'll hit enter and we have successfully done this. So now that we have done this, we basically can enter our pivot table, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's close this data model now. We'll enter a new sheet. Let's call that new sheet customer behavior. Okay. So we'll go to insert tab on our ribbon, click the drop down on pivot table, and we want to insert a pivot table from our data model. As usual, we click on OK. So what we'll do now is to use the order classification as rows, right? And we did that in our orders table. So we can see it, orders classification, we take that to rows where we have one time and repeat. Then we can now take order ID to the values, okay? So let's take order ID to values, and we are going to have the count of one-time customers and repeat customers. So you can see now that our repeat customers are more than our one-time customers. With this breakdown, we can immediately tell how sticky our products or services are. If you want to present this in percentages, that is fine. You'll be able to achieve that. To achieve that, you can do that by double-clicking on the orders or count of order ID here. You can show your value here as percentage. You can also do that by clicking the drop down on values here, then click on value field settings. So you can basically get this value field settings from these two areas. So let's show value as, right now it's set to no calculation. We want to set the value as percentage of grand total, right? We click that and we click on OK, and it gives us a percentage of grand total. What this does is that it gives us a percentage contribution of one-time purchase and repeat purchase to the total number of purchases. So now that we've got our data sliced and summarized, let's be honest, raw table don't always tell us the story at a glance. That's why visuals come in, right? With just a few pivot charts, we can bring our customer behavior to life, make it easier to generate insights and make decisions, okay? All right, let's insert pivot charts from our pivot tables. We go to insert, go to pivot charts, click on pivot charts, and let's pick pie charts because it basically gives us a better representation. Then we'll click on OK. So we have a pie chart showing us what we have here, right? Because it's a pivot chart, you can see the counts, right? The labels that you had in the pivot table, right? So, but you can remove these, and you can remove these by unchecking all of these individually if you like, or just uncheck all of them if you don't want to keep any, okay? And you can basically achieve that by clicking on the pivot chart. If you don't click on the pivot chart, you won't get those commands. So click on the pivot chart, you see pivot chart analyze. That is where you click to get these field buttons, okay? Now let's insert pivot charts for cost popularity. We can go to insert pivot charts and we can basically take a bar chart, right? We say okay, and you can do the same thing by hiding all of these labels. So let's do the same thing for our top performing. Remember, you have to click on the pivot table to get the pivot table commands, okay? So click on the pivot table, right? You can insert the pivot chart from pivot table analyze. You see pivot charts under tools. You can also insert directly from the insert tab where you see the pivot chart, okay? So let us pick a column chart for this, all right? And we'll say, okay, now we have our charts. Let us deal with these labels, okay? Or those fill buttons will hide all of the fill buttons, okay? So what of our order frequency? Because of how long this is, it will be better to use a line chart if we will ever use this in our visualization, okay? So let's insert a line chart, okay? We'll say line, right? You can see how it is. But if you don't want it to look this way, right, we have to order this, right? And once we order this, we'll have it ordered. That is in descending orders, right? Let's click this filter and say more sort option in descending orders. Let us filter using our order frequency and we click OK. So you can see the order frequency from the highest to the lowest, okay? So we can take out these fill buttons. We are going to deal with how this looks. It's going to look better. So we have inserted pivot charts from our pivot table, but also I would like you to know that it is possible to insert a pivot chart directly, right, without having to create a pivot table. So depending on what you want, most times why we create pivot tables first before we go ahead and insert a pivot chart is because probably we want to perform further calculations on our pivot tables. Calculations like grouping, right? Or in situations where you want to insert a chart which is not a pivot chart, like maps, for instance. You cannot insert maps on a pivot table because a map is not a pivot chart. Okay, so you have to clone a pivot chart, right, before you can create a map of the cloned table. If you'd like to know how to do that, leave a comment and we'll create a class to show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and insert our first pivot chart. And our first pivot chart is going to be a bar chart, okay? So let's go to a new sheet. And in this sheet, we want to enter a bar chart that looks at top 10 courses by sales. So let's say top 10 courses by sales. And we can rename this to top 10. Let us insert a pivot chart to visualize that. What we are going to do now is to go to insert, right? And you can see pivot chart here under charts, okay? Now we want to enter or insert the pivot chart in this existing worksheet, okay? And we want to use data from our workbook data model, okay? So you have to check this because we want to use our data model, right? So click OK. Once you click OK, these are pivot chart fields, okay, where we choose to build our pivot charts here. So what we need to do now is to go ahead and select the fields to build our charts. So we want to get course name because we are looking at top 10 courses by sales, right? So let's go to our course table and we are going to pick the course name into categories, right? Okay. Then we are going to pick order ID, all right? We'll take order ID from our orders table. Let's go to our order table and we are going to pick order amounts to values. So what we have done is that we picked cost name from our cost table, then order amount from our orders table because we want to see top 10 courses by sales, basically by revenue it generated, okay? All right. So now that we have done this, you can see we have our charts on order, right? All right. So let's sort this in descending order. Okay. So we will click on the filter, course name, click on more sort options. I want to sort in descending orders, right? We click the drop down. We want to sort based on the sum of order amounts, right? We click OK. Once we do this, you see that we've sorted in descending orders. So let's insert our second pivot chart, which will be a pie chart of gender distribution of customers. Okay, let's create a new sheet and call this sheet gender distribution. We'll go to insert pivot charts. We want to insert pivot charts from our workbook data model in this existing worksheet. We'll click on OK. So we are going to be picking gender from our community table. We want to take gender into the label. Then we will pick customer ID into our values to count, okay? So mind you, we said we want to insert a pie chart, all right? So if you've inserted this by accident, you can still change these charts into a pie chart without having to delete this, okay? So to achieve that, you click on design, right? And remember, I said you can only see these commands in your ribbon if you are clicked onto the pivot chart. If you click outside, you see it's gone. Click to highlight it, you see it's here, back. So you see it's back here. So let's click on design and you can see change chart type, okay? Click on change chart type and let's pick pie chart, then click OK. You have it back in pie chart as you want, okay? So now let me share something with you. We picked customer ID and gender, right? Pick gender to our categories label, then customer ID to values, okay? So you may want to perform an analysis where you want to count the gender and you don't necessarily have customer ID to count. So you can also do this by taking gender to your categories as well as gender still to your values, and that will work. For instance, let us remove this field and we can still take gender here and we are still going to have an analysis, okay? So if that will be okay with you based on your data set, that will be fine. But let's take customer ID and put it. So you see, it's still going to give us the same results. So we can go ahead and then remove our labels. Let's click on pivot chart analyze and hide all these field buttons, okay? Let us create a column chart that shows us orders by region. Okay, so that will be our third pivot chart, right? So create a new sheet and rename that sheet orders by region, all right? So what we'll do now is still to go to insert and we want to insert a pivot chart and want to use the data model in our workbook. We'll click OK, all right? Then we will go ahead and fill this up now. So we want our region in the row axis, the category axis here. So, and that can be found in our community table. So take region here, okay? Then we'll take order counts, right? Remember the column we added in Power Pivot, right? So, and that column is in our orders table, right? So we'll go to order counts, right? Put it in the values here, and we will have our orders by region. So remember how we put this in descending order. So let's click this drop down icon on the region, move sort option, and we want to do it by or sort by descending order, and we want to sort using the sum of order count. So we go ahead and do this. Now, let us insert our fourth and last pivot chart directly. And that chart will be monthly order trend. Okay, let's create this and say monthly order trend. The reason we are giving this label on the sheet so that we don't struggle when we want to put our charts together. Okay, so we'll say insert pivot charts. Okay, right. Remember, as you pick this, it will pick a default chart. You can always switch to your chart of choice. Okay, so we want to use the data model in this workbook. We'll click OK. All right. So we are going to be picking months, and we're using months because we just had 1 year, right, in our data set. So let us see sales through months. Okay. Then we'll pick order counts to values. Okay. So this will give us the different months. So now you see that the months here gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 12. That is 12 months. And remember, when creating your visualization, you have to take into account the communication of your visuals, how your visuals will be communicated. Because if you say 1 is for January, 2 for February, and so on, will it make sense to your audience? So let's make this correction here so that we basically can have the name of our months instead of numbers, right? And we did this in Power Query from our orders table, right? You can basically see when we separated day, month, and year from our orders date, right? So let's double click on the orders query here to take us to Power Query. So in Power Query, let us remove this month so that we don't have a duplication, right? Then we highlight the order date and go to add column. Then in dates, we want to select months. We'll say name of month. You can see, right? Name of month instead of just months from there. So if you say name of month, it will give us the name of month. So 1 for January, 9 for September, right? Instead of just the numbers, okay? Now, we have basically done this the correct way now. We don't have to load this afresh, okay? Because it's part of a query. So we don't have to load this again because if you come here, you see close and load to is grayed out. So we don't have to load it anymore, right? We can just close it, right? And say keep, okay? And you see that it is refreshing. You can see our month name has been added. So we can easily just go back to our charts, right? And in this chart, we've taken out that month from our data set. So that is why we don't have it there. So if we go to our orders table now, we are going to see month name, right? We pick month name to categories now. So we have it this way, okay? So this line chart helps us look at how orders are changing over time, right? You have answers to the questions like, are sales seasonal? Are sales growing, or is it flattening? Okay, we've got the insights, right? We've got the charts. Now it's time to package it all up because even the best data needs a clean presentation. A well-designed dashboard doesn't just look good, it guides the user's eye, highlights key info, and make interaction intuitive. So let's start by organizing our visual space. So we will create a new sheet dashboard, okay? We want to make sure we can do some adjustments to remove these grid lines. We will go to view and we can remove grid lines, even formula bars, as well as these headings from our view tab, okay? Now we have successfully cleaned up our space. So now we can bring our charts here, one after the other. Let us go get our charts, then label them appropriately, then insert icons, okay? We can start with the monthly trend, copy this chart and place it here, okay? Let's remove these fields. So hide all. We can remove this total because we know that these are monthly order trends. So we can remove this as well. Let's work on the series, okay? Right click on it and say format data series. Let's go to the fill and line and go to the bottom here and pick smooth line. So when you pick smooth line, you see now it looks like a beautiful trend. So you can basically right click on the chart itself and say format chart area. So in the format chart area, you say no line, right? That is on the border. On the fill also, you will say no fill. So let's come to the plot area now. In the plot area, if you don't have this pane open already, you can just right click on the plot area and say format plot area. You are going to have that. So let's say no fill and no line as well. For this, you can just click on it and click on this line and delete this line. So we are doing this because you want to make sure that your charts are legible, right? So you don't want to have different colors and so on. You want to make it friendly to the eye. So if we decide to give a background color or set up a tone for our dashboard, we'll be able to have this clear to see. All right. So you can also change the color of this, your series line. Okay. You can do that by right clicking and formatting. But since we have it here, you can just use this. Okay. So the color here is automatic, so it's blue. So you can change it to any color as long as it suits the theme for your dashboard. Okay. So now that we've entered this, so we have to put labels. Okay. We can do that by inserting a text box. Okay. So let's insert a text box. Okay. We draw a text box. All right. So let's call this monthly order trend. We can now work on the formatting. Let's make this area black, all right, and make the text this yellow as well. You can use the color theme that suits you. So the next thing we will do is to remove the line and the fill of the text box, okay? So the text box highlighted, we go to shape format, we go to shape fill and say no fill. Go to shape outline and say no outline. Okay. Let us insert an icon. So click on icon. You have to be connected to the internet to insert the icons, right? So let us pick an icon that matches what we are doing. So we search, you can search for an icon that matches. So let's use this. Click on insert and it's be inserted here. We pick it to where we want to have it, resize it, all right, and basically put it close to our label so you can change the color as well by clicking to highlight it, then go to graphic format, and then we want to give it a fill color. You can give it a different color so that it matches well. Okay, so let's give it this color. All right, so now we have our monthly order trend. So the next we will have to bring here or bring forward is our order by region, okay? So let's copy our order by region. I use Ctrl+C on my keyboard to copy. Then I want to paste it here, right? I'll go ahead and work on this chart as well. So I don't like how the bars are so tiny, so I'm going to work on these bars. Once I click on this, because I have this format pane open up already, that is why I can basically just do that. But if it's not open in yours, click on the bars, right click and say format data series. Okay, now you are here. We want to work on the gap width, right? So we reduce this gap width so that the bars will be bigger. This series overlap, what it does is that it overlaps the series, all right? So let's reduce the gap width to 4% so that we have it this way. We are going to be removing this total and this as well, all right, so that we have a clean, clear view. So now we want to deal with the outlines, right? So I'm going to right click on the chart area and say format chart area. I don't want a fill, neither do I want a border, a line. So I'm taking that out, okay? Then for this, I can just click on it and I say no line, and the line is out, okay? So we have it this way. So now I want to deal with the colors. So to work on the colors of the data series, you click on the data series and you can decide to pick a color that you like, okay? All right, you can use this color. I think we will have to use this color across board. So let's change this as well to that shade of blue, okay? So light blue, change this text to light blue as well. All right, okay. So let us remove this line, okay? So we have this. Now we just have to put our label, and this was order by region, right? We'll just duplicate this by highlighting it and say Control D for duplicate. So we'll drag it here and we'll call this order by region, okay? Right. So we can insert another icon, and let's use this for the icon, and we'll say insert, okay? Then we'll adjust it to fit. See how I am adjusting from the corners, right? If you adjust from here, you are going to have a distorted icon, which is not good visually. So always adjust from the corners, okay? So it is possible to adjust from just one corner, okay? Until you get the size you are looking for. So let's change the color of this icon to our theme, okay? We'll go to graphic format, then we can pick the color, all right? So let's pick another chart, the gender distribution, which was a pie chart, okay? We'll copy this gender distribution pie chart. We'll go to our dashboard. Let's scroll down a little bit and put our gender distribution here, okay? As usual, we will be taking out this total, right? We can leave the legend here, okay, male and female, all right, because we need to actually know which is male and which is female. You can have different designs by going to design, right, and then pick different designs of pie charts that you want. You can also change how this pie chart looks, right, the layout of this pie chart by going to design, and under quick layout, click the drop down, and you can basically select how your chart looks, okay? Basically the layout of your chart. So we actually want a lean layout. We don't want the whole of this space covered. You see how the legends are far away from the pie chart. So we may decide to have it in a situation where it is just directly under, right? So we can have it this way. So we can still change the colors of the slices of the pie chart, okay? So you can right click and go to format data points, right? Go to the fill and line. In the fill, you can decide to pick that color we used, okay? Right, the blue, and then do the same for this piece, okay? You can change this color to maybe this shade of yellow, or maybe a different shade, right? To maybe create something like a demarcation between the piece, you can just click on any and drag, okay? Something that basically makes it looks like a different kind of pie chart, all right? So what is left is for us to now enter our label. And this was our gender distribution, right? We are going to duplicate this and bring it down here. So we call it gender distribution. All right. Now that we have inserted our gender distribution label, we still have lines here in this chart. So we'll basically click on the line, right, which is a chart area. Then right click and say format chart area. We'll say no fill, no line as well, okay? So this basically leaves it this way. So let us insert an icon as well, okay? Since we are using icons too. We have our icons inserted. We adjust it and take it to where we need to keep it, and where we need it, then we can change the colors, okay? What do we have next? We have our top 10 courses. So let us copy these top 10 courses and head on to our dashboard and paste our top 10 courses here, right? We are going to be removing the label and the legend, right? Then we will work on this as well. So we'll click on the series. We want to format this data series. This is it, right? So we want to reduce the gap width. Let's reduce it. Okay, so we can have it this way. All right, so let us continue our formatting. We'll say no fill, no line, right? In the chart area as well, no fill, no line, okay? All right. So now we have it this way. We can change the colors, okay? Let us do so, just as we've been doing for others. Okay, change it to this shade of blue. All right. Then top 10 courses, right? We are going to be duplicating this to label it top 10 courses. And we can basically just duplicate and reuse this icon here. So top 10 courses, okay? So our dashboard is taking shape. So let's look at the chart we have next. So we have customer behavior, that is purchase behavior. So we are going to pick this as well. So we'll go to our dashboard. Let's place this here. All right. So place this here and work on this. We'll take this out, right? Then go to design. Let us pick a layout that will help us maximize our space. All right. All right, let's change the color of our slices. So we will right click on this to have a format data point. We want to change this to our theme color of blue. Then this, since it's one-time purchase, so we'll be changing that one-time purchase to red so that we know that what we have to focus on is the repeat customers, right? We'll also see how we will make this one-time purchase repeat customers as well. So let us remove the lines from this. So we'll say no field, no line, right? So we have it this way now. So we can now duplicate to enter our label. Let's say purchase. We call this purchase behavior. We will go and insert a matching icon. Click on insert, go to icon. So let's pick this icon and say insert. We adjust the icon, place it by the side of our label. Then we can change the color of that icon to match our theme. Let us see the next chart we want to add. Now, this cost popularity by region, okay? We can add this chart as well. So let us copy this chart, take it to our dashboard, and let's place that chart here. We can look at the various ways this chart will make sense to us. So let's look at quick layout to see how which is the best way to present this chart. The essence of visualization is to be able to make sense of data, right? So charts like these are too cramped, okay? So what you can do is to change the chart type. Let's change the chart type to a column chart, all right? And even at that, you still see that the chart is stacked, all right? So you can also switch rows to column and columns to rows to see which one will be best, okay? But one good thing I have to point out is that while slicing through your data, filtering through your data is going to look better. So if you have it this way, you don't have a problem, okay? Because you can basically still make sense out of it. At first glance, it may not look so good, but at least it looks better than what we had before. But when you slice through your data, you are going to see that you can generate insights clearly from these, okay? So let us remove the field, the line from the chart area, remove the lines from the plot area as well. So we can go ahead and label these charts, okay? One thing for sure that will be difficult to do is to actually change the colors of the bars, but there is no problem. You can easily just do that too. So you can do that by clicking on the individual series, okay? You can see the series, you can do that and change the colors as well. But you cannot make everything here the same color as we have here. The reason is we have different comparisons here, okay? We have the different legends as well as the different courses. So this was comparing, or this is comparing the regions, and the courses, right? While this is just comparing just one variable, looking at how the cost performs in sales, right? So let's label this, duplicate this, and say sales performance or sales performance in regions or preferred courses. We can duplicate this icon, right? So now let's work on alignment because it does a lot or has a lot to do when we look at or have a glance at our dashboard. Okay, so we'll have to basically align these icons and the labels. Okay, click on the icon, hold down Shift and click on the label, then go to shape format in align. We can just align it middle. So it will align that way. Once it's aligned, we will group it, okay? So that we can move them together. All right. So we'll do the same thing for all of them. Okay. Align middle. And we are aligning middle because you can see that the icons are larger than the text and we don't want the icons to be too small. Okay, that's why we're aligning middle. So let us group this as well. We align this and then we group. Okay. We'll do the same all around. Okay. Now that we have successfully grouped everything, we have to also make sure our grouped label aligns properly with our charts as well. So we need to make sure we also align them center. You can see with this now, it aligns with our charts, okay? It helps it to look good. So we'll click on the chart, hold down Shift on our keyboard, then click on our grouped label. Then we'll go to shape format and in align, we'll say align center. You can see that. Let's do the same for these. All right. Then we'll say shape format, align, then align center. You see the alignment done. We'll do the same thing here. Highlight these and we'll say align. We can then say align center. You see it moving to align. All right. Okay, now we are done aligning our charts with our labels. So let us go ahead and round up our designs, okay? First of all, we want to put a banner here, right? That gives a general label to our dashboard, okay? So go to insert, let's pick shapes, okay? We can pick this rectangle shape and draw it from here, okay? Through here. We will give this a color. So go to shape format and let's pick this color, which is our theme color. So we can basically shift our charts downward a bit so that we can put this, or we shift it to the right so that we can also have another box here that will hold our slicers. Okay. So move them to the right. So now we can insert the rectangle box. So we go to shape, insert another rectangle that will stay by this corner. So let's change the color of this rectangle. We'll make it a different shade of blue so that it can complement this blue. So let's remove the outline, right? So that we have a clean presentation. Okay, so you can see how our dashboard is looking now. So we can enter a text box to give a name to our dashboard. So we can go to insert. Let's go and insert a text box. Draw this text box here and call it customer behavior dashboard. Okay, so let's format this. We'll click on the text box to highlight the text box so that it will be easy for us to just format. We want the text to be white. And then we remove the field from the text box and the outline as well from the text box. We go to home and let's take Arial Black as our font and just increase our font size to 28. So this is a customer behavior dashboard. Okay, so you can also insert your logo. So let's insert our logo. We'll go to insert. Our logo is a picture, right? So we'll say insert picture, then we'll say from this device. Then we go to where we have a picture, that is our logo. We click and say insert. So we have our logo here. You adjust it to fit, then take it to where you like it to be. So our dashboard is taking shape. So what we need to enter next is our slicer, okay? Our slicer will serve as buttons to help us to generate insights from our dashboard, okay? All right, so let's insert slicers. So we'll click on insert, we'll go to slicers. We can either insert slicers from our queries, that is from our connection. You see, we have community courses and others, right? We can also do that from our model where we have 3 tables. So we can click OK here, and then you can see our model, right? So we can insert slicers from our model. We want to insert a region slicer, so we'll click on region. So it depends on the number of slicers you want to insert. You can check the slicers you want to insert, then click OK. So we want to use region. We also want to use course category, and course category is under courses. So you see why we had to use the data model, because we are inserting slicers at once from different tables. Once we have checked these, we click on OK, and then we have our slicers inserted. We can now pick our slicers and arrange them right where we need to keep them, okay? All right, so you can adjust to remove the white spaces. You can adjust the color, the size of the buttons and everything of your slicer. To do that, click on the slicer. You can see your slicer here on the ribbon, right? You can look at the slicer styles, okay? Now, on the slicer styles, you have the dark theme as well as the light theme. If you check any, you'll see that it changes based on the theme you have available, okay? So you can also adjust the number of buttons, but right now, what we have is appropriate. You can also adjust the arrangement of the slicer buttons. And to adjust that, you can come to the column, right? So right now, both slicers are in one column. If you make it 2 columns, you see it adjusted this way. But you have to take into account or consider the labels of your slicers. If they are not visible, it won't make any sense. So let's leave this as 1 column because it is appropriate that way. So you can manually adjust the size of your slicer itself instead of adjusting the height and the width. When you manually adjust your slicers, it can help you better because you may not know exactly what height and width to adjust. For the buttons here, this refers to these buttons, okay? So if you adjust the height, okay, you can see the height being adjusted. You can also adjust the width. For instance, we couldn't make this into 2 columns, but you may want to adjust this, right? You want to adjust it so that this space will not be there. So for the width, we can reduce the width. You see, even if we reduce the width of the slicer itself, we will have still adjusted the width of the buttons. All right, we have entered or inserted our slicers. What we need to do now is to connect our slicers to all of these charts that we have here. So to do that, we can click on the slicer and go to report connection. We can also achieve that by right-clicking on the slicer and still go to report connection. Anyway, will serve. So you see that we have to make a connection, right? Without making a connection, these slicers wouldn't work. So let's connect our slicers to all the pivot tables and the pivot charts we have inserted. And you can do that by just checking them, okay? Then click OK, all right? So that has been connected. So if we click data analysis now, you see that it will affect our entire dashboard. Remember what I told you about this? Initially, it looked like it was overcrowded, but when you slice through, you are going to have a clear visual to generate the insight that you require. But now, this works, but we won't be able to slice with this because we had not connected this, okay? So let us do the connection. We click on it and we can report connection here, right, under slicer. So let's click on report connection and we check all the pivot charts and pivot tables we have inserted. When we do that, we click OK. So now the connection has been established. it will be easy for us to actually see performance by regions, okay? You can click on North Central, you can see performance by these regions. If we want to go back to what we had initially, you just clear this filter. When you clear this filter, you go back to your initial dashboard before filtering. So let us make this a full screen so that we can basically see these all at once. So we click on this and say full screen mode. So with a full screen mode now, you can see our dashboard clearly. This dashboard isn't just a pretty report, it's a tool. I encourage you to take this structure and apply it to your own data, whether it's for marketing, sales, HR, or logistics. All right. So thanks for staying with me to the end. You now know how to create a full Excel dashboard to analyze customer behavior. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, comment your questions, and subscribe for more hands-on Excel and data analytics tutorial. See you in the next video.